The 3-day Battle of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, commenced on July 1st, ending July 3rd in 1863, and was the largest battle and turning point in the Civil War. There were 85,000 Union soldiers under Major General George G. Meade and 75,000 Confederate soldiers of Virginia under General Robert E. Lee. Casualties totaled 23,049 Union men and 28,063 Confederate men, which included dead, wounded, and missing in action. For over a century, there have been countless reports of paranormal activity in Gettysburg. Cries of wounded soldiers, musket fire, cannon fire, battle cries, as well as apparitions of soldiers at battle stations, as if the war was still being fought to this day. The battle was a 3-day bloodbath, with some men never receiving a proper burial. On July 5th, after General Lee left the battlefield, burial parties began the difficult task of burying the dead. The first men found were buried where they lay, with more organization taken on later days, burying men in trenches, Union soldiers together, and Confederate soldiers together. Are there lingering spirits on the battlefield as well as buildings commandeered by the armies? Please welcome our guest, Sandy of the Fort Schuyler Paranormal Society and the Sandy and Toddcast show on Facebook and YouTube. Please grab your beverage of choice and sit back and enjoy the show. The show will begin in 1 minute. Welcome to Diggin with Deej. How is everybody? Give me a minute here. I think I sent the wrong link to Jeremy, so I'm punching this in. B-U-K-J-H. There. Okay, let me get out of this window here. So how's everybody doing? Let's see who I got in my house here. Go to comments. Javier Garcia, welcome. JP Lawns and more, welcome. Underground Buddha, Bobby Buddha's in my house, welcome. Nancy, Ambient Girl Diggs, welcome. PA Relic Hunters, David, welcome. Straight Up Metal Detecting, Tripwire, welcome. American Detection, welcome. And guess who just showed up? Yeah, it's my fault. I sent him the wrong link. There he is. Hi, Jeremy.
I'm getting an echo.
You're getting an echo. Do you have another window open?
Let me see here.
You shouldn't have another window open. Only have the one window to StreamYard open on your computer. That's it.
I got it. How's
Okay.
that?
I don't have an echo.
I don't either now.
Okay. American Detection,
Hey, everybody.
welcome. We got Don Williams. Welcome, Don Buddha. Okay, Damon Jacobs. Hey, Damon's in the house. Yay! Welcome. American Woodland Wallix. Welcome. Rob Random. Welcome from across the pond. Cynthia Swearingen. Welcome.
Welcome out, everybody.
Artemis Nectar. Welcome. Mark DeBerg Hunter. Welcome. Let's see.
I'm trying to find where you're at.
Cynthia Swearingen. I'm working from the bottom up. Shelly Williams, welcome. Don and Shelly are in here. Woohoo! Starry's Lost and Found. Steve, welcome. Jeff's Obsessions, welcome. JP Lawns and more. I think I'm caught up that way. Now we got to catch up the other way.
I can't figure out where you're at.
Go to all the way to the end.
Okay. Clark's Cove in the house.
Very cool.
Team,
Very cool.
Who is that? Team Lynch?
Yep, Team Lynch, Tim and Kathy.
Welcome in, guys. Hope everybody's doing good tonight.
We got Country Diggers. That's Jamie and Tara. Diggin. Javier Garcia.
Jeff's Obsessions in your house, Deej.
Yep.
Mud SWAT in the house.
Welcome.
Hey, Ambient Girl, how are you, Nancy?
John the Metal Detective. I think we're caught up. So normally I would start out with my world-class treasure hunters illness list, but because our guest has to be finished by 6:30, I'll wait and do that at the end of the stream. Okay. So,
boy, have you got an interesting one for everybody tonight.
Oh yeah. I'm hoping you guys love this one. So, the history of the Cashtown Inn. I'm going to tell you a brief history. It was built in 1797. It served as the first stagecoach stop west of Gettysburg. During the Battle of Gettysburg, the inn was commandeered by the Confederate Army for General A.P. Hill, while 22,000 men of the 3rd Corps camped in town.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Town was, I don't know, a couple miles away. After the battle, General John Imboden used the inn to organize the evacuation of the wounded Confederate soldiers from the battle. There were more Confederate soldiers that entered the inn, the front door of the inn, more than any other building in Gettysburg. It is considered the most haunted place.
So there would be an extreme amount of death there.
So with that brief history, let me bring our guest, Sandy, in. Okay.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Sandy. How are you?
Hi, Jeremy. It's good to meet you.
Nice
I'm so glad to
meet
be here.
Oh, that's not the way I want to do it. How do I?
And hi, everybody watching tonight. Thank you guys for joining us for this.
You here and everybody else to the side, and it's not letting me do that. That's not what I want. I want you first. Oop.
No, okay.
That didn't work.
All right, we'll make do with
get
this.
The best picture of us. Maybe this way. There we go.
There we go. That'll work.
There we go. That looks good. Bear with me, folks.
That.
I'm still new to all this stuff.
So where I was telling Deej that I normally in my studio I'm set up in the opposite direction, and I'm on my desktop now instead of my laptop. So I'm still in the process of getting everything switched around. So it may look a little wonky tonight, but I'm here. At least I'm here. So
you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, Sandy?
Sure. Well, first of all, I am a member of the Fort Schuyler Paranormal Society. I'm right smack dab in the middle of New York State. I'm about halfway between Syracuse and halfway between Albany. And we have just a very small team, but we are associated with the Adirondack Park Paranormal Society. Damon Jacobs, who's in the audience tonight, he is, we're all friends and we all work together. And I'm also a co-host and co-creator of the Sandy and Toddcast on Facebook and on YouTube. And we also have all the audio platforms covered too. So if anybody wants to check us out, they can do that. But about me, I didn't really understand that I had abilities for most of my life. I just turned 51 on Sunday. And until probably about 4 years ago, thank you so much. Thank you. Until then, I had absolutely no idea that I had any kind of abilities whatsoever. And weird things would happen to me all my life. And as soon as I started to put the pieces together, I kind of realized what was going on. And then you look back at your life and you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I know this at the time? Why didn't I understand this at the time? So that's sort of my progress. I had some things that happened to me in the last 10, 15 years that sort of worked me towards that, but I'm still on my journey now to figure everything out. Basically, I'm an empath. I'm a healer empath. I also have some abilities. I'm what they call claircognizant, meaning clear knowing. So pictures will come to me. Names will come to me. I've had that happen a lot. And usually, sometimes it's during the investigation. Sometimes it's days or weeks before the investigation. As soon as I know I'm going to be in a place, that's when it kind of starts for me. I also can feel energy. I can interact with energy and spirits and feel their emotions. I can have conversations with them without actually even seeing them because I can take on what they're feeling. And it's happened to me several times before. I can touch objects.
You take on the emotional aspect?
Yes, and it's pretty amazing. The first time it ever happened to me was on an investigation at an old sanitarium from the turn of the century, the early 1900s. And the good doctor's wife, who worked in the sanatorium, was actually interacting with me. And I sort of figured out the main reason why she was still there just from understanding her pain and understanding her emotions at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And really had an amazing conversation with her. And it's really helped me in the paranormal investigating side because it sort of puts the whole picture together for me. I'm a paranormal investigator, but I also have these abilities. So I can get a really good idea of the situation and what's going on. I can also touch objects. I can feel energy by touching objects. And sometimes I can get a little bit of a background. Sometimes I can't. So that's basically what I can do. I'm sure I can do more. I just haven't really tapped into it and I don't really understand it that well yet. But those are the things that I use when I'm investigating or when I'm in real life. Those are the things that I kind of use to my advantage, I guess you could say.
Wow. Well, that touch feel thing where you're able to get something from touch, that would make metal detecting very interesting for you.
It probably would.
Some of those old things that come out of the ground, if you could get that emotional connection.
I'm sure she's relaying to Damon, who's in the chat, who is
It's really an unusual thing. And when I really realized that I could do this, it was sort of scary, but it was really like exciting at the same time. And I went out to visit Todd from the Sandy and Toddcast, my best friend, in Wisconsin last summer. And we went to the Opera House in Oshkosh, and we didn't go in, but I sort of put my hand on the building and I could feel it like vibrating underneath my hand. Yeah. It was really a crazy thing. Really crazy. We've had quite a few adventures with things like that. It's pretty interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got to show this message from Damon. Because, we have plans for Sandy.
David's got a lot of plans for me. I don't want to know anything about it. I don't want to know anything about it. Troublemaker. So yeah.
You have had the privilege of going to Gettysburg not once, but twice.
Twice. And I was supposed to go back in 2020 and then COVID happened. And so we didn't get to go back. I'd like to go either this fall or in the spring again. The first time we went was in 2008. And the second time was in 2012. And I'm a huge history person. I don't understand why I don't do detecting, because I'm so entrenched in history, and I love history and historical objects and things like that. Give me time, I may get into that too. But I love the history of Gettysburg. I've always been drawn there. And so in 2008, we went, and we did stay at the Cashtown Inn. And I can only describe my first trip to Gettysburg.
Jeremy.
My first trip to Gettysburg as sort of like that whole kind of paranormal dream come true. I still at this point didn't know I had abilities, but everything just came together perfectly, and so many things happened to me. It was really intense, really insane. And the second time we went back, was in 2012. We took our dog down and we camped down there. We had a camper. And that one was a little tougher because the cicadas were out, and everybody who knows cicadas knows you can't hear anything. You can hardly hear yourself when they're out there. So any chance of really investigating down there was put to the side. But we did do a lot of checking things out and history and visiting Sachs Bridge and things like that, which were really cool. And I did have a pretty amazing experience at that time as well on the battlefield. So both times really worked out amazingly for me.
I kind of imagine with those abilities as a child, that would have been probably a fearful time, or getting used to having those abilities, or it was really, I look back on my life growing up, and I didn't really know that I had abilities. I look back at my grandmother's life now, and I'm pretty convinced that she had them, but her generation didn't. Got a kitty. Mine are all blocked out of my room. I'm out of my studio right now. I'm pretty convinced that she did have abilities, but that generation didn't really talk about those things. And I sort of wish she had, because it would have given me some guidance and I would have understood things a little sooner. Probably made it a little easier for you.
It sure would. And you think you're depressed, you're introverted, you're shy, you think you're suffering from depression, but you're not really suffering from depression. It's just all of this stuff coming down on you, and you just don't understand it. So you don't know how to help yourself, So it was rough at times growing up. Now, at least I kind of understand what's going on. So it's a little bit easier to, sort of adapt my life and my lifestyle to being able to deal with the things that happen to me.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's different. Cool. It's definitely different.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So going on the battlefield, I mean, as somebody that loves history myself, I don't have any abilities that I'm aware of, but I can imagine that just walking out there in that area would be a certain energy anyway, that's there.
It's funny because my husband laughs at me both times we went down. Every single day that we were there, we had to drive through the battlefield once in the morning, and we had to drive through the battlefield once in the evening. No matter what we did the rest of the day, that was a constant. And people talk about cities being haunted, entire cities being haunted, like Savannah, Georgia, which we're going to retire to. We're going to move down there in a few years. This is an entire town that's haunted.
Right.
Wow.
The entire town has this energy attached to it. And I just honestly don't think that you have to have abilities to feel it, because it's so electric when you walk through there. And it almost makes you tingle.
because it's sort of like this whole feeling of just knowing what went on there.
Yeah.
And knowing that you're in a place like that with history, that it's just so incredible. It's such
so
an
many
incredible experience.
thousands of lives that were cut short. Thousands and thousands.
And it's just fascinating to me. And I'm not ashamed to admit, I'm a little bit obsessed with Gettysburg. And so I watch a lot of the movies. I don't know all the technical stuff about the battle and the Civil War. I lean more towards the personal stories and who those men really were and what the town really went through and what they were like. But I think that makes it even more important because you sort of connect with them.
Yeah.
And it's the battlefield is amazing. I had a few experiences on the battlefield that kind of left me scratching my head.
Wow.
One, we went to the National Cemetery in Gettysburg where Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address. And when we were there, it was really interesting. Now, I grew up in rural New York State. We're about 5 hours north of New York City. So we're, very rural. And I know what a shotgun, I have my own shotgun. I know what a shotgun sounds like. I know what rifles are like. And all of a sudden we heard these two loud reports. And they were much deeper in tone than a gunshot would be. I have a pistol. I know what they sound like. This was much deeper and they were loud.
Right.
And I looked at my husband and I said, Dave, those sound like cannon shots. And even my skeptic husband, which I'm a skeptic too, even he kind of scratched his head and said, it did sound like cannon shots. And the interesting thing about that is that cannons are not allowed to be fired on the battlefield. So where did these noises come from? Because it was just the oddest thing in the world. The big one that happened was in 2012. We were driving along. If you're driving on the battlefield, to the left of you would be Little Round Top and Devil's Den. We were sort of parallel with Little Round Top, and Devil's Den was up to the northwest of us. And these three young men, probably about 13, 14 years old, were approaching us. And they were half walking in the road, half walking out of the road. And they were dressed in Civil War type of attire. And one had a drum, one had a flag, one had a rifle. And at first glance, you think, oh, it's just some reenactors. They walked towards our car. We slowed down because I was going to try and get a picture. And we slowed down. And it was interesting to see their eyes because they never once looked at us. They looked straight ahead as they walked. And these didn't look like your normal everyday teenagers in modern day United States dressing up. They didn't look like they were dressing up, so to speak. And they walked past us, didn't acknowledge us in any way, shape, or form. So we sat there for a minute. We didn't really say anything. And we drove on. And we stopped at the visitor center a little while later. And because it kept bothering me. And they seemed solid. It was bothering me. And so I don't know if it's changed, but I believe at the time, anybody who did any kind of reenacting on the battlefield had to register or sign in with the visitor center so that they were aware of what was going on. And that day, the lady who was at the desk told us no one was registered to reenact on the battlefield.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So wow. Would this be considered a residual type haunting? These kinds of occurrences, like the cannons?
I definitely think the cannons were residual. And I truly believe that if this was indeed a paranormal experience that we had with these three young boys, that it was probably residual.
Right.
They didn't address us. They didn't interact with us. They didn't
Right.
realize that we were there. So I can only imagine that what we saw was some sort of energy stamped into.
Just kind of replay it itself over and
Right.
over.
I wouldn't be surprised if other people saw the same exact thing many times. And it was just such an interesting experience because they really looked solid, but nothing about their existence made any sense. Nobody else was reenacting. They didn't interact with us. They didn't look at us. They didn't try to move out of our way. Nothing. And so to this day, I really do feel like I did actually get to see something paranormal on the battlefield itself. I mean, people have seen whole regiments marching across the fields.
Yeah.
You know, that's something I'd really like to see. But, you know, and they did use young boys as, you know, they would play the drums. They would, you know, do all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So just that was probably my favorite experience ever on the battlefield and probably one of my biggest experiences. One other time I saw an apparition trying to form, but that wasn't on the battlefield. This was pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you want to explain to people, in case there's somebody in the chat that doesn't know the difference between a residual and an intelligent?
Sure. And it's also, believe it or not, it's also possible to have both a residual and an intelligent haunting by the same spirit at the same time. I've run into it a few times now. Mm-hmm. Residual just means, like Jeremy said, it's sort of like a tape player. Energy. So, for example, if there's a lot of emotion attached to something. Maybe there's a bartender who's worked in a bar for 25 years and every single day he takes the same path down to the cellar to get more beer. And that's what he's using energy for. It's possible for energy to be absorbed into that space and keep that energy. And so people may hear him whistling. If he whistled while he worked, they may hear his footsteps. They may actually see him walking down to the cellar to get beer. You know, it might be the same time every day. It might be every 6 days. It might be every 6 months, but it's going to play over and over and over again.
Now, I've heard of times as well where like odors would, like, you know, a smell of a certain cologne
or a cigar.
Or a cigar, or those kind of things. I've noticed that happen within that same type of haunting scenario.
That actually happened to my group. I also was on this internet show called Ghosts, Pubs, and Grub, and we would investigate different haunted restaurants and bars. But one of the episodes we did was for the Rucker Mansion in Utica, New York, and we were in an upstairs room, and all of a sudden we smelled what smelled to be like almost like formaldehyde, and it was a really strong odor, and there was no reason for there to be formaldehyde. But come to find out, Roscoe Conkling, who owned the house, he was very high up in government at the time. He actually was laid to rest in that area of the house when he passed away.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it is very much possible for odors. Anything that has an emotion attached to it or has some sort of another example, we heard piano playing because it may have been that let's just use the woman of the house played the piano all the time. And so you might hear the piano playing even though the piano's not playing. That's residual energy sometimes. It can be intelligent. I mean, her spirit very well could be there playing the piano, but a lot of times that's the kind of stuff that you run into with residual. Now, intelligent is where they actually are there. They actually interact with you. They know you're there. You know they're there. And you can have intelligent interactions with them. We've seen that quite a few times. We use different equipment to try to get answers from them. that kind of thing to communicate with them.
Touch on that a little bit, the types of equipment, because maybe a lot of people in the chat tonight, because we are kind of crossing lines. Some of these guys might not be familiar with some of the equipment you use. I think that'd be cool for you to talk about it.
Yeah, it's really cool because in recent years, because the paranormal has sort of taken this, it exploded. A lot of new kinds of equipment have come out. I tend to like to stay pretty old school with what I do. I have a pendulum. I use one investigation, I used a pendulum to get some answers. But we use digital recorders so that we can get EVPs. I know Deej has a couple of EVPs from the Cashtown Inn that I sent to her. We use what's called...
I can flame, right?
I know, right? We use the Mel meter. The Mel meter is great because not only does it measure ambient room temperature, but it will also give you an EMF reading, electromagnetic frequency. And the belief is that when there are spirits in the vicinity of this, it can pick it up. It was originally used for electricians to find the frequencies in the walls when they would work on the walls. Sort of been adapted over the years to ghost hunting.
Now, is it true that in some situations, maybe bad wiring helps attribute to spiritual activity from the electromagnetic field, that's too much of it's getting into the room or the area?
Oh yeah,
they feed off of it.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that you have to be careful for when you're checking for EMF as well, because you have to know where your wiring is in the place. A lot of times we like to try and get it all turned off if we possibly can completely. But there are certain places to look for it and try to see if it has anything to do with it. On the other hand, they will use electricity. They will use batteries to drain the batteries to take in that energy to make themselves stronger. It's really interesting. We were at a restaurant and we thought that the EMF, we were getting spikes of like 60. And we like to, because we're all skeptics too, we like to try to debunk anything before we believe that there's the possibility it could be paranormal, of course. So we were in a bar and there was a compressor that would come on every few seconds. And so we actually tried to correlate whether the spikes were happening at the time when the compressor kicked on, the generator kicked on, to make sure that we weren't reading this incorrectly. As it turns out, we weren't, because if the compressor came on, it was going to read at a solid 68. Whereas we were getting 16, 34, 55, 12. So spikes. We knew that whatever was interacting with us, it was not because it was not really the compressor, but she may have been interacting with us because she was feeding off the energy that the compressor was giving off. So those are the kind of things you look for. You have to sort of feel your way through it, learn about it, get used to it, understand, oh, this is a spike. Well, let me put it towards the wall and see if there's any kind of electricity running through there. Just interesting, cool things like that. We use what we call spirit boxes. They are sort of like radios, but they sweep really, really fast. So they sweep all the radio frequencies to just get white noise. And that energy from the spirit boxes is said to be able to enable them to get enough energy to actually communicate and use words. Those have been really helpful to us. I know Deej watches Kindred Spirits, and Adam, they do that. They use that a lot. We use it with the headphones, and we've had some really good conversations that way. So those are the main items we use. We just built our own SLS camera. If anybody watches Ghost Adventures, they've seen the SLS camera and Kindred Spirits. That will detect like anomalies, and it'll look sort of like a stick figure. We just acquired one of those, so we're gonna be investigating this Saturday night, and so we're gonna use that for the first time. I'm very excited about that. Cool. Very
Tell us where you're investigating, or is it a hush hush?
It's right now. I try to go in without knowing too much about it. I go what they call cold, so that I can get my feelings, and then I'll say, Dennis, Dennis has all the information. I'll say, Dennis, are there reports of this going on here? Or does this happen? Here's where I feel the strongest energies, that kind of thing. So then I'll ask him those questions. But it's an 1800s pre-Civil War old farmhouse that is now a bed and breakfast. And they've been having some reports of activity in there. So we're going to go check that out for them and see what we can come up with. I already got a name. So I'm interested to see if this name is really...
that's cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. I love when that
happens. Did it come to you in a dream or what?
They just come to me. Sometimes if it's a name, it'll just pop into my head. And I'm learning how to really trust myself. So in the old days, I would say, oh boy, do I have a good imagination. But nowadays, it's a little bit more than that. So I learned to trust myself. And if I get a name in my head for no reason, that it's probably something, or I'll get a movie in my head, a little quick movie, a little snippet of somebody doing something, really quick story about the names. We did an investigation at a library last summer, and I can't give too much information because it was supposed to be for a fundraiser that got canceled because of COVID. So I think we might be doing it this year. But a couple of weeks before the investigation, I had a little movie play in my head of I had a bunch of stuff come into my head, but this was just a little movie of an older lady, probably in her 70s, gray, silver hair. And I had a picture of her walking through the library, and I could picture her exactly what she was wearing. And I write everything down so that I don't forget it. And so I wrote everything down, and this one particular name came to me. Now, I thought her name was Mary, but then this other name came to me, and it was a really unusual name. I had never heard it. And I know that we all have, for example, grandparents are called different things around the country, Mima, Papa, Grandma, Grandpa. And so I just thought, well, maybe it's, maybe she had grandchildren and they called her this name. Okay, didn't think too much of it, wrote it down. Well, we had the library's caretaker and his wife join us that night for the investigation, sort of as trigger objects. And went about our business. We're investigating. And all of a sudden I heard him mention this name. Now, this is a very unusual name. And he mentioned this name and everything. I just stopped. And I said, what was that name you just said? And he said the name, and I about hit the floor because there's no way that he would have gotten or had the same name that I got. There's just no way. And it turned out it wasn't this woman's nickname, but actually a gentleman works there who has that name.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I somehow connected with this gentleman without I haven't been to that library since I was about 10 years old. So there's absolutely no way that I would know who worked there and who didn't work there. So, that's the kind of stuff, that's how this stuff comes to me. And I'm just learning how to trust it now because a lot of times they come true. So, yeah.
Right.
So.
Well, it's not letting me answer the chat. Glitch.
Uh-oh.
So, what was it like? Can you describe how the Cashtown Inn was inside and all that?
Well, the Cashtown, I had booked the Cashtown. Whenever we go anywhere, we stay in haunted places. That's just the way it is. My husband just goes along with it now. He's actually a member of our paranormal team. And I wanted the Cashtown Inn. I just wanted to stay in the Cashtown Inn. And I booked it before the Ghost Hunters episode came out about the Cashtown. So I booked us in the General Lee suite. That General Robert E. Lee was actually in the Cashtown as well. And they had the entire attic of the Cashtown as the General Lee suite. And when you walk into this building, it's absolutely beautiful. They've just renovated it now. They have new owners, and I want to go back and stay again. When you go in there, they had a bar and restaurant to the right-hand side, the general area to the left, and then this beautiful staircase that winds up to the top. And it literally winds. There's no floors. There's no rooms underneath each floor of the staircase.
Right.
And so we get to the suite, and I think it was just the perfect storm. I think the fact that they're attracted to me because of my abilities, the fact that it's just insanely active with activity, insanely haunted, all came together. I had so many experiences. We were sitting on the sofa, and they had a book that you could sort of write sort of like a diary for guests, and you could write as you go. And I was just flipping through it. We were waiting to go down to dinner, and I was reading a couple of passages about people talking about the sofa vibrating. And just as I get done reading them out loud to Dave, when you know, the sofa starts to vibrate.
Oh, wow.
And the sofa literally vibrated. I mean, and I will tell you this. We thought of everything. We were the only ones. We stayed 2 nights. The first night, there was a ghost hunting team in there, but they were on the other side of they sort of have an addition in the back. They were down in that area. And the second night, they actually got asked to leave because they were very rowdy and obnoxious to the owners. So they were. So we had the second night all to ourselves, the entire inn. Mm-hmm. But we looked at everything we could possibly think of as to why this thing would shake, and it literally was. It did it for about 20 seconds, stopped, and then shook again. Mm-hmm. And we thought, well, maybe because there was a restaurant downstairs, we thought, well, maybe it's the dishwasher. Maybe it's, the big industrial dishwasher. But we were so far up. We were on like the 3rd floor. Yeah. I just don't think there's any way that nothing else could vibrate in the room except this sofa. Right. So that's a head scratcher for us. So we go to dinner, and I got out my digital recorder. This was back in the day before I had any equipment except a digital recorder. Mm-hmm. I got it out. We got ready for bed. And I put my digital recorder on the dresser, didn't think about it, went about our business, got ready to go to bed, went to bed. The next morning, about 6 a.m, I wake up, and there's a depression on the bottom corner of my bed. Oh, wow. And when you're laying in bed and somebody sits on the corner, you can actually feel it go down. Yeah. I could feel it. And wow. So I don't know what that was, because I thought, well, I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm half asleep. I don't know if I'm dreaming this, what's going on. But you could literally feel it then come back up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Wow. So, So that happened. We had some other little things going on. I had a bottle of shampoo sort of flipped over. Stayed the next day, had a great time. Nothing else really crazy happened to us. Went home, took my recorder home with me, had about 8 hours of audio that I had to listen to. When we got home, sadly, our dog passed away. Oh, no. Not too long after we got home. And so everything just kind of got put aside. And I wasn't a paranormal investigator at the time, so it just didn't dawn on me. I put the recorder down. I forgot about it. Mm-hmm. A year later, my husband was DJing a party. We're in radio, and he was DJing a party. I was by myself, and I remembered I had it. So I get out the recorder, and I listen to it, and literally a minute in, there's someone talking into my recorder. And it sounds, well, you want to talk about scared. Here I am by myself alone, and I'm hearing something. And it was the first time I'd ever tried to get EVPs. The first time I'd ever I just thought, oh, I'm going to be so bored. I'm going to have to cut this into 3 different nights, because I'm not going to sit here for 8 hours and listen to this. Right. And so what happened was I got so scared after I heard the first set that I put it down, and I didn't realize that it just kept going. And going and going. Oh, and wow. It just went on and on and on. And so those are the EVPs that you have, Deej. And they're what they call a class A because they're pretty clear. Pretty clear. I would say class A, maybe class, a little step down, but pretty clear. And my thought process is that Jacob Mickley and his wife Barbara were the owners of the inn in 1863 when the Confederates came through. And it's reported that the family ran to the attic to sort of hide from the Confederates when they came through town, as I'm sure most people did. Mm-hmm. And then a year later, their daughter Mary took over the inn. But I believe that this could very well be Jacob Mickley. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting about this is that I showed it to John Zaffis and David Considine, who are both demonologists and paranormal investigators in the paranormal world. And they were really impressed. It sounds as if, and I'm not sure if I gave you the one that's actually in Celtic, but I had one that was in Celtic. Somebody was speaking in Celtic. Mm-hmm. The Mickleys were Irish immigrants.
Okay.
And so when you listen to this EVP, whoever is speaking, and I believe it to be a gentleman, but whoever is speaking has sort of an Irish brogue.
Okay.
So
you want me to try playing it?
Yeah, give it a shot.
Oh yeah, let's hear it. That'd be awesome.
Okay, hang on. Bear with me, everybody. I've never done just sound before, so I need to go into share because it won't let me do it any other way, I don't think. So we're gonna do share screen. Go into this.
You guys go in there and hit that like button while you're waiting on Deej to get the sound up.
Hold on a second. Let me try this again. I got to make sure that there isn't a box to check for sound so you can hear the sound. Share screen, share system audio. Yes. Share the window. Okay, here goes. Here's the first one.
Oh, wow.
Okay, that's the first one.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I think it's saying.
Is this okay? This is the second one was shorter, but let me go back to the first one and play it again.
Okay.
All right, bring that back and start it. Looking for something?
Yeah, it's three parts. The first one sounds like hey. Mm-hmm. The second one sounds like help me. Mm-hmm. And the third one sounds like it has an Irish brogue and it says looking for me.
Okay, that's what I thought. I heard looking for, but I couldn't catch the rest of it.
Yeah.
Let me play it. Let me back it up and play it one more time for everybody. This is the long one. The other one is a real short clip. Even this one's 13 seconds, so. Looking for you or something.
It sounds like it says looking for me, mm-hmm. Which would kind of make sense if the Mickleys were upstairs in the attic hiding. Hey, help me, looking for me. Maybe they're looking for me. That's what we're getting out of that.
Uh-huh.
The second one was just kind of cute because, well, not really cute, but it almost sounds like he's saying, shut your mouth.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Okay, let me play the next one and get ready, people. It's really, really fast, okay? Shut your mouth.
Yeah.
Your mouth.
Now
play that one again.
Okay, let me play it again.
Play that one again.
Yep, I think that's what it's saying too.
So I can't even imagine why anybody would tell me to shut my mouth. So the actual reason why I think they said that is it's possible that that could be some sort of residual, or that maybe one of the Confederates was speaking to the Mickleys maybe when they found them.
Right.
You know, shut your mouth. You know,
Yes.
that kind of thing. It was more that kind of interaction. So, because they didn't know me yet. So they couldn't have told me to shut my mouth yet.
Right.
You know, I'm a talker, but so yeah. So those are a couple of them. There were a few more that I have to really hunt down to find, but one was speaking in Gaelic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, pretty interesting, pretty clear.
Yeah.
It's almost like he kind of stood over my recorder and kind of whispered into my recorder.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very interesting time at the Cashtown Inn. That's for sure.
And it sounded very, very authentic too. You know, it was very, very authentic sounding.
It was, I was really, and here's me who I've never even tried to get this to happen before. That was the first time I'd ever tried for that. And there are some investigators who go years trying to get something like that. Right. And here's little old me with a couch shaking and somebody sitting on my bed, and you know, I'm getting this, and it was crazy. Absolutely crazy. I will say this though, Gettysburg, if you ever get a chance to go to Gettysburg, you have to go to Gettysburg. I can't guarantee it, but I'm saying it really is possible that you could have some sort of experience there. Really.
Now, I talked to Jackson, Sandy,
and
told him you wanted to go in May. I said, we could go too.
Seriously.
Her husband goes on vacation with her too.
Seriously. Anytime,
oh, yeah. Oh, I would love to do that.
I'm dying to get back down there. So I'm hoping either in this fall or the following May, I really want to get down there and spend some time down there again. And I feel like it's home to me. I really do. I feel like I belong there.
Mm-hmm.
And I would really like to see now at this point, because I haven't been there since 2012. So I'd really like to see where my abilities can take me now that I kind of understand them more.
Now that you've reached out more with that whole thing.
Right. Exactly.
I noticed the outdoorsy gal had asked a good while ago, but we had covered where you had kind of inherited this gift from your family.
I think so. Yeah. And there's a lot of people who believe that it is passed down. Now, my mother has zero abilities, like zero. Like, but I do believe that my grandmother did have some abilities. She actually... You know,
I've always heard it skips a generation. I've always heard that.
That's what I've heard too. That's what I've heard too. So it would make perfect sense.
Yeah,
it would make a lot of sense. Yeah.
See, in my dad's family, it was my great-grandmother. Which I've only had a handful of experiences. My dad thought that it was handed down to me.
Right.
You know, but my mom wouldn't have anything to do with it. Absolutely not. Don't believe in it. It's a bunch of hogwash. And she was firm in her beliefs.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and those generations never talked about it. Like, I've decided that I'm going to fully embrace it, because if I don't, I think that I get cheated out of this journey that I'm on.
Experience. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I've seen and heard things that are just, phenomenal.
I would think in your case, if you didn't embrace it, it could just drive you insane.
Which is what happened to me a lot of my life. I thought there was something really wrong with me because I didn't understand. I went to real quick, I know we got to wrap up soon, but in 2008, right around the same, I think it was the same year. We went to Washington, D.C. And I'm not a huge believer in reincarnation, but I'm very open-minded, so I believe that anything is possible. And I've been sort of on this journey to try and figure out, I do believe that it's possible that I was alive during the Holocaust. Oh, wow. And one of the reasons why I believe this is because in 2008, we went to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. And I'll leave you guys with this story. I was okay in most of the museum. It's built up on like 5 floors. I was okay walking through most of it. And then, of course, I had no idea about myself at that time. we walked to this one floor, and you had to go through what sort of looked like, I wasn't really paying attention, looked sort of like a bridge to get into the main room.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I got inside this like room, I didn't know what it was at the time. I just thought it was a room. I got really sick. Like I really felt like this huge weight was on my chest. I got dizzy. I couldn't breathe well. All of a sudden, out of nowhere. And I immediately got out of it. And I went, and there was a little bench across the thing. And I went and I sat at the bench. Well, I turned and I looked back at it. And it was an actual train car that was used during the Holocaust to transport the Jewish people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And
that had been so dark of an... Oh, wow.
It was awful. It was awful. And I feel like that sort of... I took on all of those emotions without even realizing what I was doing, what was happening to me at the time. I took on all of that fear and terror and anxiety and sadness all at once as I walked through that car, because it was open on both sides. So you just kind of walk through it into the room, and there were shoes and suitcases and glasses, and all kinds of things like all around this, sort of like in a little moat area. And it was just that huge. And I had to sit there for 10 minutes and try to collect myself. And I eventually felt better. But that kind of stuff happens. You know, and I didn't understand it at the time. Now I know to avoid that stuff, or at least go in with a little bit of my own self-armor so that I know what's going on and I know what to expect.
I would guess you would have to some way separate yourself from those emotions too, to keep it from internalizing.
They call it, you are spot on. It's called compartmentalizing. And what you do is you realize that those aren't your feelings, and you sort of put them aside and move them aside from who you are. You can still feel them, but you don't feel them in the way that you would feel them if you took them on as your own.
That's my friend Garan of Paranormal Search. He went to an infirmary a couple nights ago, and he took on the emotion of the children that were there and feeling bad for them and not wanting to leave.
Yeah.
And he hasn't yet learned how to, I feel like he's got abilities, and
the most dangerous thing that you can do as a paranormal investigator is if you don't realize that you have these abilities of any kind. You can be an empath, you can be a medium, a psychic. It's really dangerous for you to yourself, self-danger, if you don't realize that you have them and go in unarmed, so to speak, quote unquote, unarmed. Because you have to go in that way. When I do an investigation, I'm like half this and half investigator, but I have to keep the two separate. And I also have to make sure that I'm in check with everything that I do and say and feel while I'm doing it, because it can be really bad. When I leave an investigation, I'm drained. Like I can't even think straight.
Goran actually left. Well, as he was getting ready to leave the infirmary, just broke down sobbing. I mean, it got to him so bad, and he has not yet learned to compartmentalize.
Yeah, and you have to. You really have to learn how to do that. There's a great, for anybody who's very interested in anything like that, there's a great psychic medium, occultist. Her name is Michelle Belanger, and she's been in a lot of the paranormal TV shows, but she is like my hero. She's very straightforward and honest, and she'll tell you. She puts out classes. She has books. You can like her Facebook page. And she just taught me so much. I've taken some of her classes, and I've sort of learned how to deal with this stuff. But like Damon says, that up until a couple of years ago, Damon is an empath. It hurt to go into cemeteries. You can take on physical pain. You know, it can be really rough. So you have to learn how to trust yourself and trust that what you're feeling may not be just everyday feelings and emotions, that it might be something else. And you
so have with that exhaustion that you feel when you leave a site like that, just say Gettysburg, and
it takes a while to recover from that.
Is that something that would
decompress? Kind
of be like how they drain the batteries? Maybe they're draining the psychic energy off of you, or
without a doubt. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they can take your energy. Most definitely they can take your energy. They really can. And that's why when I leave most of the time, we don't do investigations until 5 and 6 in the morning. We're usually done by midnight. I'll just go home and I'll sleep. Like just sleep because I'm so drained emotionally and physically too.
I would think that would probably be worse for somebody that did have psychic abilities because you're more highly tuned, I think, than the average person. You know?
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's very important to protect yourself.
Yeah. I was so concerned about Goran and how many investigations he's done in the last 5 days that I had Sandy help me, and I ordered him a men's tourmaline necklace for protection.
It's just important because when you do have these abilities, you are more open than other people.
And the spirits are drawn to Goran.
And they're drawn to you. So that means it's great. It's wonderful that they want to communicate with you, that something out there wants to communicate with you. But by the same token, you have to be very careful. You have to protect yourself, not only spiritually. I mean, I'm an ordained minister. We also do an opening prayer and a closing prayer. We carry different crystals with us for protection. You want to make sure you're emotionally, physically, intellectually safe before you go into these situations, because it can be really scary.
Yeah.
So
I had one quick question before you're going to go.
Sure.
Chrissy said, have you ever come into contact with a bad spirit? Had a bad experience?
I haven't had a bad experience. I take that back. When we were in Wisconsin last September, we went to the town where has everybody heard of Ed Gein? He is the serial killer who with his mother.
Okay.
Yeah. So we decided to take a little field trip to the town where he lived and is buried. And he's buried there with his brother, his father, and his mother. And I touched speaking of cemeteries, Damon, I touched the gravestone of his mother, Augusta Gein, and I wasn't prepared for it because what happened was, and this was my own fault, I wasn't prepared for it, but what happened was I just felt this incredible void and darkness. When I touched it, I started to cry.
Oh, wow.
That was the emotion that came to me. I just started to cry. It was such darkness that it scared me. Yeah. And my husband and Todd didn't know quite what to make of it because tears are rolling down my face.
And then he was a bad guy.
Yeah, he was really awful. He was really awful. And his mother had a lot to do with that.
Right.
And I think that she was just as evil in a lot of ways as he was. And she kind of proved it to me that day. But that was my own fault. That was the only time I really had encountered anything really negative. There's heavy residual energy that you might encounter, which we were in a place that used to be a speakeasy once. And all of the sex and violence and drunkenness and all of that kind of stuff, fighting that goes on and all that kind of stuff in one place sort of it makes it feel dark. It's heavy, residual energy in that spot. But the time that I touched the gravestone was really, that was the darkest I've seen, but that was enough to make me realize, I have to be careful even doing something like that.
Right.
It taught me a lesson. So
someone outdoorsy gal wants to know about orbs.
Orbs. Okay, my take on orbs, and I know there's a huge difference. A lot of people believe that they're completely spirits and they're, see faces in them. I don't see faces in orbs. But I believe, my personal beliefs with orbs is that orbs are not actually spirits, but orbs are energy. They're balls of energy. And I think that what they do is they aren't spirits themselves, but I think orbs enable spirits to be present because the spirits can use the energy from those orbs to be able to manifest, communicate, whatever it is. I don't necessarily believe that they're actually spirits, but I do believe that they are connected to the spirits and that the spirits can use them to continue to manifest or do whatever they need to do.
Right.
Yeah.
I've never put a ton of stock in photographic orbs because it is so easy just by brushing the carpet. If I see it in person or on film, but for photographic orbs, for the most part,
I'm very iffy on orbs. I always have been. I probably always will be because there's so many other things that it can be, especially photographs. Video, then I'm thinking, is it a bug of some sort?
Mark the Bird Hunter had an unusual one picture of an orb. That was unusual.
Yeah, I'm always iffy, but I'm open-minded enough to say, okay, let's, it's highly possible. I have video of orbs that truly look to me like they are. I mean, they're literally like blinking, pulsating.
Yeah.
And, but everything in the paranormal world is up for discussion and debate because we don't have that 100% proof. I can tell you what I've seen and heard and experienced, but I just don't have the big piece of proof. It's sort of
like that good
and
still
all the
photo.
Investigators are trying to find that proof.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like that good still photo or video of Bigfoot. It just hadn't happened yet.
And with the cameras that we have today, there's no reason why we don't have a good Bigfoot video.
I agreed.
I'm just saying.
Do you use FLIRs of any kind, like a FLIR that sees heat? And do y'all use that any?
We don't have those in our group. I'm not sure if Damon has them in apps. We haven't used them yet. I'm sure that's coming because I like to play with that techie stuff. I like to try all of that different things, different things. But the SLS camera that we're going to use this weekend does have thermal attached to it.
Oh, that's cool.
So I think probably a handheld FLIR at some point in the future, and then we'll use this for now too. So
I think that would be really cool.
I can't wait to see.
Yeah,
because I think that would be cool just to watch and see the differences. Because I got a friend that has one, and you can put your hand on the wall. And move your hand and move your hand away later,
and you can see where your hand was.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I watch ghost hunters all the time, and I'm like, oh man, I got to get one of those. The problem is some of it's really expensive.
Oh yeah, yes.
That's why I actually built this SLS camera myself. There are ways to do it. I spent about $50 on it and hooked it up to my laptop, and they go for about $600 to $700 online.
Wow.
So if there's some way I can make a FLIR camera, you better believe I'm going to try it, but we'll have to see what we can do. I think it's great that they go hand in hand. Right. I don't want people to say, oh, let's base it off of just Sandy's experiences or her abilities, or let's just base it off the scientific. I think what makes a good investigation, a well-rounded investigation, is using both and bringing them together to try and get a full picture of what's really going on. And that's what I strive for. I try to help. I want to be able to help, in some way, and sort of get some answers as to what really is going on in these places, So, and if it's something that can be debunked, I want to know that too. I want to figure out why it's doing it if it's not paranormal. So I kind of, I walk that line of trying to make it as well-rounded as I possibly can.
Well, that's because I think people that embrace it like you do, or people that embrace the idea of ghosts or anything else, that there's got to be a starting point where you get a little bit of belief in what's going on and start trying to disprove it.
Right.
And if you can disprove it, good. And if you can't, there's a whole lot of fascinating things in this old world that just we can't explain.
No, I'd rather disprove anything that I can first.
Yes.
And then really look at what I can't disprove, because there really is so much out there that we don't know about.
Right.
There's just so much we don't understand in our everyday lives, let alone the paranormal world. So, I like I love it when people say, well, prove to me that it's a ghost. Well, prove to me it isn't.
Right.
Prove to me that it isn't.
Prove to me you were at Walmart last Thursday. Things you just can't prove,
Exactly.
Right.
So, but I'm having a ball with it. I'm really enjoying it. And it's, my journey. And I just love the team that I'm on. I love the people I'm with. And it's just, I want to help. I want to find answers. And the only way you're going to find answers is by actually doing it safely, but doing it. So love doing
And
it.
with that attitude, you're going to get some answers eventually.
I hope so.
Sure.
I hope so. Little baby steps, a little bit at a time.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah. So.
Well, I want to thank you so much. I know that you have another engagement that I need to get you off to.
Well, thank you both for having me on, and thank you to everybody who's watching. I'm watching some of the comments, and they're great. So thank you guys.
I think we got up to 45 or 50 in the chat at one
time.
Awesome.
That's
great.
That's a great.
Really cool to have you. It's really cool to have you.
It was so nice meeting you, and I love it. Anytime you guys want to come and just BS for an hour, just let me know, and I'll come talk to you. We'll talk about all kinds of fun stuff. So
anytime, for sure.
I have so many different things that I can talk about, so we'll have a good time.
I would like to do some future live streams about positivity. And how to protect yourself when you're going metal detecting at a new site that might
I know some people don't look at them together, but they really do go hand in hand, because you really are messing with things. I say messing with things in both of these fields. And you just don't know what you're going to get. We actually kind of cross over together. So it's really a good idea to make yourself safe. And if you don't necessarily believe in it, that's okay. But it's better to be safe than sorry. So you might as well do it. And you can get a cute little necklace.
I'd love to see you and Deej go on a metal detecting hunt where she finds the finds and you feel and see if you make a connection.
Oh, yeah.
I
would love that.
And then I hand them to you and have you hold them.
I would love to. Maybe
that
we'll have to figure it out.
That would be highly entertaining for me if y'all could make that happen.
We'll have to figure it out, Deej. Maybe we can do it around Gettysburg next year.
Yeah.
That would be great. That would be fun. Just so everybody sees, I was showing Deej before I go. This is actually a bullet.
Oh, yeah. He has a mini ball.
The Gettysburg battlefield. This was you can't detect on the field now, but this was from back in the day.
Yeah, it's illegal to detect the battlefield.
Yeah.
Soldiers are buried 12 to 18 inches deep.
Yeah. It's kind of, I was telling Deej, it's kind of creepy to me because, I'm walking on the battlefield and there could be somebody literally like a foot under me.
Right. But I mean, there were 50,000 men that were injured, missing in action, or dead.
Oh, gosh.
And then horses besides, 5,000 horses besides.
Yeah. So it's just so many things that, I highly recommend getting to Gettysburg. If you can't stay at the cash town, at least get out to the battlefield. Twice a day, I'm always there. Go through town. There's different places. Jenny Wade's house. There's all kinds of places. We can still see bullet holes in the wall, the outer walls of the homes. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. So,
thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
Okay.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good
all right.
night.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Good guest tonight, Deej.
Yeah.
Good guest tonight.
For sure.
I really would like to see you guys work out a trip.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it was just some house somewhere down the street.
Jackson is a Civil War history. My boyfriend is a geek when it comes to computers and history and stuff. So he knows. I mean, when I was working on my intro for this show, it was uncanny. He was saying the words as I was saying them when I was talking about what generals. And he was he looked at me.
Damon
of course
Jacob.
I know that. I'm a history nut.
Damon says he's in and he'll film it.
Okay, cool.
So you guys need to put together. So I believe that would go over nicely, man.
Yep. That's cool. So, well, thank you everybody for coming. I'm going to go over the World Class Treasure Hunters prayer list real fast. It's the same as it was last week. I didn't get any other notifications. Reed's Art of Adventure is recovering from COVID. Detect, Dig, Smile, recovering from COVID. Same thing with, Coin You Dig It was sick, but we're not sure if it was just normal sickness or COVID. Uncle Al, Oldies and Goodies, they did more testing and discovered he didn't need a heart valve replacement.
Awesome.
So he didn't have to have the surgery.
Very good.
Susie Q96 is still waiting for her eye surgery. Please keep FK Burnham, who's in the chat, in your prayers for his illness. Don, the metal detective's brother-in-law. Don, how's your brother-in-law doing? Pull tab Pam, who's in the chat. Please keep her in your prayers. She's going through cancer treatment.
Yes, prayers.
Chris Ward, Michigan Metal Detecting, my club. He's one of the founders. He's recovering from major surgery. Tom Holliday's home from the hospital, has an appointment with a cardiologist soon. And then Chris Treasure Troll recovered from his knee surgery and is back to work. So awesome. Next in line for live streams is Jersey History Hunter with Audra and Bobby Buddha.
Dude.
At 7 o'clock. 8 o'clock is Flash in Your Pan, which is Ed, Dano, Jesse, and Rose.
Awesome.
And then at 9 o'clock is Papa Rouse, What's in the Dirt, Bill.
Oh, yeah.
His live stream is at 9 o'clock tonight.
Awesome.
So this Friday, the video will be, my Friday premiere video will be the trip that Don of Detection Connection and I took to the Ohio Flint Ridge.
Oh, cool.
Prospect for rainbow flint that the Indians used to use in Ohio.
Cool. Very cool.
So that will be the video for this Friday. So Damon says, Deej, one of our relic seekers just had emergency appendectomy. Whoa.
Uh-oh, prayers.
So keep them in your prayers.
For sure.
Okay, will do, Damon. I'll write that down. So thank you again, everybody, for coming. I appreciate your support. And we will see you soon.
See y'all.
Bye.